exactly how I expected it. I've met him a few times. He's incredibly charismatic, confident. I like him. I like him a lot. And I have to be honest, a few years ago, I'd have said, like, I think I would have really struggled having another foreign manager. Obviously, it hasn't worked out previously, with Capello and Sven-Goran Eriksson. I've almost got to the point I just want the best man for the job. And how the FA have got to it, I think Alan alluded to it. It does feel like a bit of a muddle. I think, if I'm honest, if Lee Carsley would have probably beaten Greece, I think he'd have probably been appointed the next England manager. I think that's how this has happened so quickly. The fact that he struggled with the press, and the press obviously will eat you alive. And I think when we talk about a coach, and we call him a coach, I think we've got to describe him as a manager, because you've not just got to manage a team, you've got to manage the press. Everything about your life will be scrutinised to the extent that no other job will give you. You are the second most important person in this country now, after the Prime Minister. You have to make sure that you're ready for everything that gets thrown at you on and off the pitch. It's a huge job for him, huge opportunity because of the players he has at his disposal. There's absolutely no doubt. It's a great generation of players we've got there. And he's just got to make sure that he's brave in his decisions. And that's what comes back to managing the players. Who's you going to pick? We've got a great squad, and I think you'd agree with that, Alan.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's important to mention that, Jamie, isn't it? He's got a group of players, arguably, as good as any in the world. And he'll be licking his lips at getting to grips with them on the training ground. And he'll probably have in his mind already what kind of 11 he would prefer to put out, given if everybody was fit. So he won't be scared to disappoint people, to upset them, to leave some big names out, maybe, because we've got so many top players in the high end of the pitch. You're thinking, how do you cram all these in? The likes of Foden, Bellingham, Cole Palmer and the like. So that's going to be really interesting, what kind of shape he deploys and who gets into that starting 11.
Yeah, because actually, Jamie, do you think he will have to make some tough calls in terms of personnel, and perhaps it will come to the fact that he will be dropping a big name at some point?
Yeah, that goes with football management, doesn't it? You always have to look at who the best players are. He obviously worked closely with Harry Kane last year, had a phenomenal season with him. There's a lot of good players that are, at your disposal. Foden, Grealish, who's been excellent under Lee Carsley. Will he maybe think to himself now that he's earned the right to play? Cole Palmer. So that's the predicament. How do you get... It's not about the best players. It's about picking the best team. And that's sometimes where England managers have struggled. They've maybe gone for the approach of just trying to keep everybody happy. Now, I do think we need more of an attacking approach than what we had in the summer. I know we got to the final, but it was a really tough watch. There wasn't very much flair, and the way that we played, I don't think was very easy on the eye at times. So I think Thomas will certainly look at that and want to play in a different style to what we played in the summer. But it's going to be interesting to see how he does that. But keeping players happy that's part of management. That's what the price on the ticket. That's what you're getting paid the big money for, to make the big decisions. And whoever it is, whether it's your captain, whether it's the goalkeeper, if you feel that's the right decision to get the best job done, you've got to make those decisions. That's why we're employing him. And the fact that maybe he's not an English manager, he might not get as emotional with these things. He might be able to maybe almost find it a bit easier to do that. So it's going to be very interesting how he sort of dissects the team, who he thinks is his best 11, because it's like you've got a whole season players coming in and out of form. And I just want him to pick. One thing I will say about Lee Carsley, he picked form players. He didn't go for players that have been tried and trusted. Maybe they've done a great job for Gareth Southgate. He picked what he felt were the best form players at the time. And I'd like to see Thomas Tuchel do that. And if that means upsetting one or two players, then so be it.
Jamie, how good could this be for Harry Kane? Because we heard Harry Kane speaking so highly of Thomas Tuchel. Tuchel, bringing out the best in Harry Kane. He had his best scoring season under Tuchel. How good could this be for the England captain?
I think secretly, Harry will be delighted, won't he? He'll look at that and go, he knows me, I know him. We work together. Get the right players around him. I can't remember the numbers that were astronomical last year for Bayern Munich. And they obviously had a really good understanding of how each other wants to play. But Harry will be well aware he's got to score goals. It's not because you've worked him before, the manager's going to come in and automatically you're going to get picked. You've still got to earn the right, and Harry will be well aware of that. I'm sure Alan will tell you, when you're a striker, you're judged on your goals. If you're not scoring enough goals, the pressure will come on. And I think also at times with England managers in the past, the press have almost said they've dictated who the team who they want to see playing. I don't want to see that. I want to see Thomas be brave and make decisions that are the right thing that he thinks at the time. And don't worry about clamours for players or someone's doing. It's got to look at, this is my team, his identity. And I think that's something that he has to do and have that right approach. He's a very confident manager, and I don't think he'll be fazed by it at all.
And Alan, do you agree with that in terms of Harry Kane? Will he be sitting there with a bit of a smile on his face, the fact that Thomas Tuchel is going to be the new man in charge?
Yeah, I mean, when you haven't worked with a manager and you're not quite sure what he likes and how he works, you're a little bit anxious. But obviously, Harry knows exactly what he's getting, and he knows the new manager rates him. Why wouldn't you? With the goals he scored at Bayern last year, so he'll go in there, I think, excited and hoping, of course, that he can win a trophy for Harry's country. So it's less of uncharted territory, if you like, for Harry, and he'll be letting the lads know exactly what Thomas Tuchel wants from his players. You know, he might call up somebody we haven't really thought of. I mean, Lee Carsley called up Angel Gomez, didn't he, from Lille in France, and Tuchel might be the same in terms of he's got his eye on somebody that could maybe do a job in a certain position. So seeing his first squad and his first match next year will be absolutely fascinating. And
Jamie, you spoke a little bit about the character of Thomas Tuchel just at the start there. In terms of a character compared to Gareth Southgate, what do you think we're going to see from Tuchel?
Gareth handled the press magnificently. I think if you were to do a masterclass on it, Gareth wouldn't have been far off it. He was always excellent how he managed them. He never really committed himself too much to any decisions or got himself in any controversy, which was just perfect for the FA. So I think that's something that you have to do. You have to make sure that everything in your private life is going to get scrutinised. That's the difficulty. And I think, I'm sure I would certainly do it if I was him. I'd reach out to Gareth and ask about the difficulties and how to manage the team and how to manage the situations off the field. You know, anybody that's been in this position, because as I said, the pressure of being England manager is absolutely immense. It's hard being an England player, but the manager, it gets scrutinised with an inch of his life. So I think that would be my advice, to reach out to Gareth, have a chat with him. I'm sure he's the sort of guy that would be only willing to help. And just make sure you're brave in your decisions. I think that's the thing that Thomas will do. I've got no doubt. You know, I've met him, as I say, and I'm sure you have, Alan, on your at different times at matches. He's an articulate guy. He's charismatic. He's an exciting coach. I can't think of a better international manager than what we've just hired. Obviously, people were talking about Pep, and we were maybe dreaming about that for a little while. But we've now got to a point where we've got Thomas Tuchel. He's a Champions League winner, done great at all the clubs he's been at. So I'm relatively excited about it. I really am. I think it's an exciting time for the country. I think we've just got to get behind him now and forget about anything else that goes with it. I think going forward, the FA will have to look at this situation and go, right, okay, how do we make our English coaches better to make sure that the next one is probably an English coach? Is it something to do with the coaching badges? Are we fulfilling everything, all the requirements to get the best coaches? Obviously, with foreign owners now, they probably don't feel the need, or they won't necessarily gravitate towards an English coach, which makes it more difficult. That's why Eddie Howe doing the job he has at Newcastle is excellent. So hopefully more English managers in higher positions will certainly help. English, maybe making sure next England manager is an English one. But right now we've got Thomas Tuchel. I think it's as good as what we could have possibly got. I think Eric Ten Hag will be delighted as well, because he's not going to be in the mix for the Manchester United job. So there's, I think it's interesting that we're going to have one of the best coaches in world football, best managers in world football managing our team. Let's hope it works out. And the truth is, just win. Don't worry about anything else. Just win a trophy and you will be an absolute hero. We won't care where you're from.
We heard from Gary Neville before. He said that the appointment, perhaps a bit damaging to English coaching, just to pick up on the kind of non-English element of this. Do you agree with this sentiment? Is it perhaps a little bit damaging to English coaching as a whole, Jamie?
It's difficult, Joe. It's very difficult for English coaches now because, as I say, there's foreign owners come in and they look at getting the elite managers, if you like. And obviously Pep would be the number one in the world. And obviously Tuchel's come into different jobs. It's harder for English managers probably what it's ever been. So how do we help them going forward? Maybe we make sure that the coaches are getting coached even better. Or when the players go and do the pro license, is it at the top level to make sure that we're producing our managers? But it's become more and more difficult, as I say, because of, if you look at Arne Slot coming in, he wouldn't have been probably the first choice or the first person I'd have thought of being the next Liverpool manager, but he's done an excellent job so far. We've got to try somehow make sure that we create elite managers, because I think people do, for whatever reason, look and think they're not quite at the same level. Now, do I think, having worked with English managers when I was younger, I don't agree with it. But that's the problem. You're only really going to give the job to the people that are in the positions of power or at the top clubs. And Eddie Howe would have been probably the one that is in the highest profile. He's done a great job at Newcastle. Did he want the job? Obviously, we don't know that. Or did he maybe not fit the requirements right now? I would have thought he would have done if they would have chosen to pick him. But the most important thing is, getting that. They have to have that's why it would have been so hard for Lee Carsley. He hasn't managed at the top level yet. And that's why it's hard. You need to be able to cut your teeth working with great players all the time, week in, week out, to have that respect. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that I think the FA need to look at, but they also need a little bit of help with the Premier League, making, in terms of with the foreign owners now, they're always going to tend to go towards foreign managers, because that seems to be the approach these days. There's not a lot you can do about that.
Let's switch attention and talk a little bit about style of play now, because Thomas Tuchel, he was kind of known for this defensive style of play. I think it was 50 games when he came in at Chelsea, 31 clean sheets. Obviously, the style of play is always debated when it comes to a national side. Alan, how do you see Thomas Tuchel kind of putting his stamp on this English team in terms of that style?
Yeah, maybe a little unfair, Joe, to describe him as a defensive coach. I wouldn't say that. You come into a club and you try and get the foundations right, make sure you're keeping clean sheets, hard to beat. And he did that at Chelsea. I mean, look at the goals that his Bayern team scored. So he'll work with what he's got. And most of the quality in the England squad is going forward, isn't it? And he'll be trying to make the very most of that. So any manager with any sense would do. He'd be licking his lips, I'm sure, at working with the players that we've got going forward. Yes, he'll want to get that rear guard sorted, but we've been quite strong defensively over the years under Gareth, and I know he got criticised for being too defensive, but you can't leave that alone. You've still got to maintain those foundations. But Tuchel is more than capable of deciding what he wants going forward and picking the right blend, I think. And I wish him well. I would have preferred to have seen an Englishman, but now he's got the job. We've got to all get behind him, cut him a little bit of slack at the start, because, as I said, he's learning on his feet. But if he can bring England a trophy, then who would care what his passport says? So let's hope he can do that.
And what about you, Jamie? Is it a case of whatever style of play, as long as he's winning a trophy at the end of it?
Yeah, I think so, Joe. But he's also a very flexible coach. I think when he took over the Chelsea job and they won the Champions League, He went in there, he looked at the players at his disposal, and they went for a 3 at the back for a lot of that season, had a lot of success doing it. Then he decided to go to a 4, which has been his favoured formation, if you like. But I think that's the best thing. We're not maybe blessed. I think if you were looking at an area where we perhaps where you're hoping for someone to really jump out defensive, would be in the defensive positions. I think that's where, going forward in midfield, the likes of Bellingham, we've got generational talents in that area. It's fitting that going forward, and certainly as a striker, Harry Kane will be obviously his number 9. Just defensively, how he feels is the best way to make sure you get results. Making sure at times where we don't, we were taught a lesson in the Spain game in the final where we were just kept getting outnumbered in midfield. We never really felt comfortable of having possession of the ball. That's something that I would like to see Thomas really do, because that is something that we struggled with for many years. And Alan's made a great point about Angel Gomez coming in. And I think as a midfielder, he's been a revelation because he's so comfortable on the ball. It might be seen as a bit of a experiment by Lee Carsley, but it's certainly one that's worked. His pass completion and keeping the ball and manipulating it, passing the ball to his own team, being comfortable in all situations is what you've got to do if you play for your country, because you get a little bit more time at times, but you've also got to make sure you keep the ball. Don't want to be chasing it too often, because you looked in the Euros, that's where we really struggled. But I think there is... that's something that he's got to look at. What's my best system with this team? Don't think I'm going to go, I'm going to play a 4 at the back if you think that we're better off playing with a 3. So fascinating to see where that's going to end up. But to answer your other question, yeah, of course, just got to win. If he wins the tournament, it will be an absolute you know, it'd be amazing. Gareth Southgate was, you know, one game away from being knighted and getting any job in world football. That's how quickly it can change. And, you know, if he'd have lost against, you know, the game before we managed, when Bellingham got the overhead kick, he'd never got another job in football. That's how precarious and how football can change so quickly.
And just finally then, guys, Alan, I mean, Thomas Tuchel, he seems confident, he seems excited. Should England fans also be feeling confident and excited right now?
Well, I think so, Joe. Yeah, because he's an established, successful manager. And what I would say, I can't think of another manager apart from the one that succeeded Alf Ramsey, who's coming in where the bar has been set so high. And Tuchel mentioned it several times. Now England are getting to semis, they're getting to finals. And if we don't do that now, it's going to be a failure. The only thing he can take it on from Southgate is by winning trophies. So, yeah, the bar has been set high, and I think the fans will get behind him. I think you'll see a very proactive manager on the touchline who'll make decisions quickly, maybe a bit quicker than Gareth did. So I think there's a lot to admire in his methods, and as I said, I just wish him well.
And Jamie, same question to you?
Yeah, I think this is the dream job. You know, you haven't really, in effect, if you forget, obviously Gareth had that record of getting to, you know, finals and we haven't won. You haven't really, in a way, got a lot to beat. You haven't won anything since '66. We've got the best squad we've had in years, a huge opportunity. You know, I am excited for Thomas. I think this is a great opportunity for him, the job, going forward, working with a lot of really, really exciting young players. I'm sure he's licking his lips thinking, if I can just get this team going, give them that confidence and that belief to get to the next step. Because what Gareth did is he made players proud to play for their country again. And Thomas has to keep that. Because that was lost for a long while. It was certainly in my era where there was divisions, there was cliques, the Man United players, Liverpool players. We never got on and we never saw that common theme, which was making sure we were successful for England. Gareth changed that. So I think now with Thomas Tuchel coming in, I can't think of a more elite manager in world or international football right now. We should be really excited about it. So fingers crossed, you know, he can go and do a great job and we can win something. And that's what we all want.
Jamie, Alan, thank you so much for joining us. It's been really great to get your reaction to that. Thank you.